Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
6:07 on this Tuesday morning in your nation's capital. Good morning. It's O'Connor and Company. Coming up at 7:05, our friend Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch. Thanks to a FOIA from his organization, there's some new information about the attempted assassination of Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. We'll get to that with him. Then at 7:35, what's the latest on the D.C. mayor's race? And will the sewage dump in the Potomac affect it? Chuck Thies will give us his analysis. Also at 8:05, Maryland delegate Mark Fisher on a viral video now out of Calvert County, Maryland. We're going to focus on that coming up in 30 minutes. A woman wants to call Child Protective Services on parents who allow their children to be a part of a Turning Point USA club. I'm not joking. All right, we'll get to that coming up in a bit. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Cassie Smedile. Good morning, Cassie.
Good morning, Larry.
Let's keep it in Maryland for a moment, though, as Governor Wes Moore, he's really trying to sort of break through. He's running for re-election, of course, in Maryland. He continues to claim that he's not running for president, and yet he's doing national news. He did a town hall on CBS News with Norah O'Donnell. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you talk to, the local D.C. or Baltimore stations if you're just running for governor of Maryland? Why talk to the local radio stations? Go out and comb the state and shake hands and kiss babies. Nope. Norah O'Donnell, CBS News, wants to make sure that everybody in Oregon knows all about smiley, shiny-domed Wes Moore.
Naturally.
And, of course, the folks at the Washington Free Beacon, Andrew Kerr in particular, as an investigative journalist, has been looking into some of the claims Wes Moore has made in the past. And he does have an Achilles heel here. Of course, there were many questions about his military record and his claim to have received a Bronze Star. Some people claim it was just a paperwork fiasco, and he really did deserve that Bronze Star. And so there was nothing wrong with him claiming he had it, even though he never did have it until much later on past his military career. Also, there were concerns about his Oxford thesis that he wrote that was never submitted, and claims that he was an international terror expert during the Obama administration, or the Bush administration, which he wasn't really, given that there's no paper trail for any of his academic work in Oxford, things like that. And then there was this latest story where he claimed that his great-grandfather had to flee in the middle of the night from his church in South Carolina, where he was a pastor, because the Klan was going to lynch him. A very compelling and very dramatic story that Wes Moore has been telling on the stump and in interviews since the beginning of his political career. The only problem is the Free Beacon investigated it, and, well, it just doesn't match the truth, the history. In fact, what happened was there was a church in Jamaica where the long-serving pastor had passed away, and Wes Moore's great-grandfather, who was a pastor, an Episcopal pastor, by the way, not a Baptist pastor. A lot of people think, black preacher, the Klan, Southern Baptist. No, actually, he was Episcopalian. He knew, within a week, that he was going to be taking that job. And he left South Carolina in a very orderly fashion, not in the middle of the night, and not because of threats from the Klan, and took up the new job in Jamaica. And he has not responded to this. His office has not responded to this. There has been no explanation for the discrepancies in these stories. They're contemporaneous. We had Andrew Kerr on to talk about his investigation, right, and he started chuckling. He said, I got to be honest, this is a really easy story. It was the paper trail is there. There's contemporaneous news reports. The guy was not, hiding in the shadows. And there's nothing, literally nothing anywhere that corroborates Wes Moore's fantastical version of the events. Okay, so finally, yesterday, in this national town hall, CBS News, Norah O'Donnell, he is finally asked about this, and he has his chance to set the record straight, to clear up the discrepancies in the story. So do you want to hear how he did, Cassie?
Please.
All right, let's go. It's cut 6. Here we go. Wes Moore.
Your great-grandfather was run out of South Carolina in the 1920s by the KKK. The Free Beacon is casting doubt on that with church records. Can you address that?
I mean, the same right-wing blog? I can. I can address the fact that I'm the grandson of someone who was born in South Carolina. And when he was just a child, the Ku Klux Klan ran my family out. And not out of South Carolina. They ran them out of the United States of America, and they went to Jamaica. And much of my family has always said they would never come back to this country. It's the reason why my mom right now, as we speak, is in Jamaica, and she's visiting with family members. But my grandfather came back to this country. He got his degree from Lincoln University and HBCU in Pennsylvania. He became a minister, just like his father. And he became the first black minister in the history of the Dutch Reformed Church. I know my family's history. So if some blog has a question about the Klan's history, maybe they should ask the Ku Klux Klan.
Did he actually address the discrepancies in the story?
Is everyone in the Democrat Party getting their speech and debate lessons from Kamala Harris? Like, that was such a word salad as well.
That was a long and winding road. It was. And this whole right-wing blog, I mean, right. Governor Moore, with all due respect, the Obama administration and the, 2000 teens are asking for their talking points back. Okay, that's like a 15-year-old kind of attack on right-of-center journalism. That's what they used to say about Andrew Breitbart and the Anthony Weiner story. Remember?
Yes.
Oh, that's just a right-wing blog. Andrew Breitbart, right-wing blogger. No one uses that term anymore. It's meant to diminish. The Washington Free Beacon is a award-winning investigative journalism unit, and they are consistently part of the White House press pool. Yes. But yes, absolutely attack the journalists in question here and attack the First Amendment and free speech.
Yeah, not your story. And by the way, isn't it funny, everything you laid out, that part of Wes Moore's accolades that conveniently doesn't have a paper trail, but the one thing that does is this big historical family narrative that he's hinging his whole national profile on? It's just amazing to me that Andrew Kerr was able to find the paper trail on this, and everything else is a lost paper trail as well. Like, how inconvenient. I think he just assumed that the paper trail would be lost on this one too, and that he could go on with this lie or loose truth.
And by the way, this has been the tactic the entire time. When asked about this, Moore's comms team, speaking on his behalf, has just attacked Andrew Kerr and attacked Washington Free Beacon. But never once have they actually given any facts. And you just heard Wes Moore doubling down on the story, not shedding any new light into it, basically repeating what he always said. Although it was interesting what he said there, if you noticed it. He did not say his great-grandfather fled in the middle of the night. He told the story through the eyes of his young grandfather. My grandfather, as a child, had to leave. I think he's laying the groundwork here. If anyone in the media wants to keep pressing this issue and say, yeah, that was really heart-wrenching and really passionate, and I love that you're calling people right-wing bloggers, but could you answer the question, please, about the discrepancies in the story? And if this gets pushed, I think his answer is going to be, listen, my grandfather told me this story. My grandfather was a little child. So through his eyes, that's what happened. I never really asked to clear things up after that. That's how he's going to get away from this. Because did you notice he told the story through the eyes of his young grandfather, who was a child at the time?
Gosh, where have I heard this before? It's coming to me. Elizabeth Warren.
Yes.
Remember?
Yes.
When she said, well, that's how it was told to me growing up.
That's right.
So maybe that's what we're going to hear next.
That's exactly what we're going to hear next. Well done, Andrew, and well done, Washington Free Beacon, you bloggers. It's 6:15. Two passings of note over the last 24 hours. The first, yesterday afternoon, it was announced that Oscar-winning actor and Northern Virginia native from Middleburg, Virginia. I don't know if he's a native, but he certainly lived for the last several decades in beautiful Middleburg, Virginia. Robert Duvall passed away yesterday peacefully at the age of 95. But what a dominant figure in American cinema he was from the 70s, well, really through the last decade, where he continued to work and continued to deliver incredible performances. In The Godfather, of course, Apocalypse Now, The Great Santini, Tender Mercies. His career goes all the way back in his debut as Boo Radley in To Kill a Mockingbird. I had forgotten that he was Boo Radley. He looks different, actually, in the Gregory Peck To Kill a Mockingbird, and all the way through his performances in Lonesome Dove. I mean, you can go on and on and on. Just incredible performances that really have just sort of defined a certain type of acting and a certain persona that he embodied in every film. He was one of the best. I loved Robert Duvall.
I came to know him through the iconic role in Days of Thunder, the NASCAR movie. He was the coach. That just shows where I was and where I grew up. But
quite a range.
Quite a range. That's really the point I was making, is that quite a range of an actor. It always seemed, I had nothing to base this on, but just an incredibly kind, down-to-earth man, seemingly in interviews. And interesting, you note, I didn't know that he passed away peacefully at his home in Middleburg, Virginia.
Yes, and like most residents of Middleburg, Virginia, he was often described as a staunch Republican. I do love the adjectives that are always, the modifiers on the word Republican. A staunch Republican. What makes a Republican a staunch Republican? Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he was a Reagan Republican. He was a good conservative dude and a Christian, and spoke of his faith quite a bit. Also a Christian, not necessarily a staunch Republican. Passing away overnight, an iconic figure of that same era, Reverend Jesse Jackson, passed away. Of course, he was the first prominent African-American to run for president and actually be considered a very real contender, at least in the latter part of the 20th century. He was a Democrat Party stalwart, and he was there the day that the Reverend Martin Luther King was assassinated. He was obviously linked to the civil rights movement and what became the connection between the civil rights movement and the Democrat Party there in the 70s and 80s. And his Rainbow Coalition sort of started the whole trend of activism turned, let's call it, aggressive fundraising. It was often the case that if a company was in trouble with a perception or charges of racism, Jesse Jackson would swoop in, and for a modest consulting fee, he would help them clean up the mess. A cynic would say that it was sort of a shakedown situation that Al Sharpton has now perfected. I'm trying to be as generous as possible, as I had many disagreements with the good Reverend over the years.
Well, he certainly became quite a businessman. I think he really parlayed his servant leadership into a good life for himself. But I will say, I'm with you. I wasn't necessarily in agreement with Jesse Jackson, especially as I think some of his politicization became more opportunistic in later years. But you got to marvel at, if there was an issue, that he was there. Like, I don't know how fast that jet could fly, but it was quick.
Yeah, I'll tell you this, though. It's funny when you look at the opportunism and the sort of radical nature of the political race movement in America that has become so toxic over the course of the last several years. You almost wistfully pine for the time where Jesse Jackson would say, listen, if I'm in a major urban center and I'm walking down the street and I hear footsteps behind me, I'm relieved to see that it's a white person behind me instead of a black person. He could speak frankly about the very real issues facing the black community, and frankly reveal honestly that many of those problems are coming from within the black community itself, and the black community has to be a part of those solutions and fixing those problems. You can't say things like that nowadays, you can, but there was you have to tread very carefully in suggesting such things. I actually admire Jesse Jackson for saying things like that at the time.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and one that, of course, he came out of Dr. Martin Luther King's movement, and where, not to say that we don't have real issues now, I don't mean to trivialize that at all, but what they were speaking up for, what they were fighting for, felt different than now, when it does seem, the AOCs and the Gavin Newsoms, where they're just like weighing in to make noise and to take
Right.
up space.
Right.
And he really had a point of view that was based on something very concrete, I guess.
I will also say this about Jesse Jackson. He could laugh at himself. He delivered speeches in a very distinct style. He was a preacher. He would have cadences. He would have rhymes. He would have, this, and I'll never forget a famous Saturday Night Live Weekend Update session where he basically read from Dr. Seuss's Green Eggs and Ham with the rhymes. And he did the exact same Jesse Jackson, very serious, sonorous sort of, hyper intense reading of Green Eggs and Ham with the rhymes, and it was just brilliant. And at one point, he had to wipe his brow with a white cloth as if he was, getting all worked up at the pulpit. And it was, I appreciated the fact that he could wink at all of us and take a bit of a giggle at himself. So there you go, two giants of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, Robert Duvall and Jesse Jackson. May they both rest in peace. It's 6:24.
Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
6:37 now on O'Connor and Company. Good morning. Great way to start your Tuesday. We are raring to go on the 17th day of February. Coming up at 7:05, Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch. New information about the assassination attempt of Donald Trump in Butler. 7:35, Chuck Thies, D.C. political analyst, talk about how the sewage in the Potomac might affect the mayoral race. And then at 8:05, Maryland delegate Mark Fisher talk about, what we're about to talk about here. And by we, I mean me and she, Cassie Smedile. Wow.
Oh, hey, good morning, Larry. What a morning.
That's like free verse, what I just did there. And I felt it was I was channeling Jesse Jackson. I was recalling there during news. My favorite Jesse Jackson moment is when he did Green Eggs and Ham on Saturday Night Live. And I pulled up the video. I had to watch it. It was just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
It holds up.
Not so brilliant, what happened in Calvert County. Nancy Cruz in Calvert County reported students to Child Protective Services because why? Because they started a Turning Point USA club. That would be Charlie Kirk's youth conservative movement, TPUSA. They started a chapter. They're all over the place, and certainly many people, many children, along with their parents, have been motivated to start Turning Point USA chapters locally since the assassination of Charlie Kirk. He was an inspirational figure. And let's just be clear, when Nancy Krause it is, I believe I just said Cruz, it's Krause, of Calvert County reports students to Child Protective Services, the end result there is that these children could potentially be removed from their home and their parents would be seen as abusers because they have exposed these young teenagers to conservative ideas. Here, take a listen. This was actually during testimony under oath. Cut 8.
In December of 2025, Turning Point USA hosted an event marketed to high school students with food and beverages advertised as an incentive for attendance. While community building opportunities for students are important, this event raises serious concerns related to student safety, parental rights, and governance oversight. Event materials indicated that adults, including parents and legal guardians, were not permitted to attend and that supervision would be provided by unnamed volunteers. Excluding parents and guardians from a student-focused event creates a lack of transparency and undermines established best practices for youth safety. School-affiliated or school-adjacent activities should adhere to clear supervision standards, background check requirements, and defined accountability structures. I am also concerned about a potential conflict of interest involving Board of Education members serving as guest speakers at this event. Board members are entrusted with fiduciary and ethical responsibilities, and participation in events targeting students, particularly when parental access is restricted, warrants careful review to ensure compliance with district policies, ethics guidelines, and public trust obligations.
Amazing.
Students are widely recognized as vulnerable population. They are in critical developmental stages and especially susceptible to influence. For this reason, safeguarding measures, parental involvement, and transparency are essential. All Board of Education members in this room are mandated reporters under state law, as I am. Based on the circumstances surrounding this event, a report was made to Child Protective Services. All of this was provided along with
Thank you for your comments.
Mandatory reporters. That was to the school board there. By the way, my favorite part of there's a lot to unpack here, but I did like the students are widely recognized as vulnerable population. They are in critical developmental stages and especially susceptible to influence. I wonder what she has to say about the transgender and LGBTQ agenda in the schools.
Ding, ding, ding. My thoughts exactly. Let's insert those same comments to that point exactly. There is so much to say here, Larry.
Oh, well, go ahead, because I'm still trying to unpack it all. She's obviously an activist. That also sounded like it was written by a lawyer or by some sort of legal advisor. I mean, that was thorough. What it
Not
was.
just a PTA mom, right?
Mm-mm.
But my first thought, I started a club in high school and we had to have a faculty advisor. But my parents for sure weren't coming to the club meetings. So we got to get this helicopter parenting thing out of the way because there's so much where it's like, why aren't the parents there? They said an unnamed volunteer adult or something. So I bet there's a faculty advisor or something. You have to have that to even start a club. But then it also occurred to me that all of these poor families that are getting reported to Child Protective Services, I'm sure unfounded. I'm sure they show up and they're like, this is a perfectly fine home. How many resources are being taken away from children truly in need? And is there any consequence for filing what is essentially a false report?
That's a great point. There should be charges against somebody who files a false report to Child Protective Services because she believes that these children are being abused because they're allowed to start a charter of Turning Point USA. And by the way, you're 100% right. There should be charges for false charges like that, for false reporting. I also want to point out that it is again, her name is Nancy Krause, Krause, out of Calvert County, Maryland. And something tells me that this is not her only public activity with regard to her political activism. I would love to know more about this woman. This is exactly why Charlie Kirk ended up with a bullet in his throat. The othering of us, the othering of our ideas, that in Maryland, for a high school student to want to have open discussions with elected officials, political leaders, and with each other about anything that Nancy Krause would disagree with, suddenly you are now a victim of child abuse, or you're guilty of child abuse, and the child should be taken away from the home. When you think that way, then it's a very short hop, skip, and jump, or baby step, to saying, yes, these people should be assassinated. That's when we are othered that way for the beliefs that we have. That's how you rationalize violence against us. It's despicable, absolutely despicable.
And unfortunately, there's proof of that with Charlie's assassination, not only the act itself, but the response to it of people who found all kinds of ways to justify it. And by the way, my sense is that these parents are encouraging free think. Sure, you want to start a chapter. I'm glad that you're wanting to use your brain and get together with other people to talk through issues of the day, but not in this liberal viewpoint of America. That's not okay, because that would be dangerous.
By the way, and just in case anyone's wondering, the school district is not paying for the club, not funding the club. It's completely self-funded. It has nothing to do with government money or the government school system. Other than what any other club would do in the school system, utilize a room or facilities. It's absolutely outrageous. We're going to speak with Maryland Delegate Mark Fisher, who highlighted this clip on social media. He's joining us at 8:05. It is 6:45. Well, for all of those stories that sort of make you roll your eyes or even get angry about some of the entitled athletes coming out of the Olympics, you've also got stories like this that sort of, well, it's why we love the Olympics every 4 years. Eliana Myers-Taylor is now an Olympic gold medalist with the bobsled team. Specifically, is it the monobob? Is that what it's called?
Yes, so the single bobsled.
Single bobsledders. She has won a gold medal. She is the oldest woman to ever win a gold medal, and she's a 4-time world champion. She has won bronze medals in the past and silvers. This is her first gold for the United States. She's a 6-time Olympian. She's 41 years old. She's also a local, right? She went to a GW, is that right?
GW, yeah, I believe she played softball at GW. So, yeah.
That's
pretty cool.
very
And,
cool.
you know, she's a mom to 2 young boys, I believe, who are both deaf. And
Yes.
one has Down syndrome, which they just did a beautiful story ahead of her race. I actually caught it live, just talking about her dedication and how that's her drive to get her to continue to pursue this dream is for her kids.
Yeah, she has 2 deaf children, one with Downs, and she was quoted in that piece by saying, God put me here for a specific reason. I don't think it's just to win medals. At the end of the day, I'm in this sport to glorify God. So if that means I come in last place or I win this gold medal, that's what I'm going to do. And, well, that's exactly what she did. And yeah, you start to get the chills as she was clutching the American flag and waving it when she won the gold. And as she was on the medal stand, and she was literally hugging the flag, like she was in tears, hugging the flag when she found out that she had won the gold. When she was on the medal podium with her hand over her heart during the national anthem, they cut to her husband, who had one of her sons watching, and he used sign language and said, "Yes, that's mommy," to the little boy. Come on.
I mean, come on. I'm crying over here. But what a beautiful, beautiful story about a mom. And actually, I will say we also got the bronze medal, and that, I'm sorry, I don't know her name, but that American bobsledder, she also had her child up there. And I just love all of these pictures of these parents and these moms that are showing it's all possible.
And is it right that Eliana Myers-Taylor, this gold medalist woman, 41 years old, that she played softball for GW when she went to school here?
Yeah, that's my understanding. A friend of mine posted yesterday on her Instagram that she was so proud of her and that they went back to playing softball together at GW. I mean, again, making the rest of us look bad. Like I'm me sitting there like doom scrolling Instagram at night, and this woman
eating donuts.
Incredible. Yes.
Yeah, it is incredible. It makes you proud to be American. It's why we love the Olympics for these. Yes, there are plenty of things to make you roll your eyes and to get upset, and you wish they would just stop. But then you get a story like this, and it's sort of in a small way, it cleanses you from all of that cynicism. This is good stuff. Congratulations, and thank you for representing us so well, ma'am. It's 6:52.